Welcome to day 3 of the National Ploughing Championships here in Ratheniska in County Laois. We're back in the Agriland Pavilion today, where our focus on the first half of our live stream today is on farmer health, safety, well-being and rural life. I'm joined with a panel today, all involved in health and safety. John McNamara from Teagasc, a health and safety specialist. We're joined by Kieran Roche from FBD, a risk and safety manager. And of course we have Pat Griffin, a senior inspector with the Health and Safety Authority. Thanks for joining us today, gentlemen. John McNamara, I might go to you first. In terms of farmer safety and health and safety, from a farm advisory point of view, what are the biggest areas of concern in terms of farm safety that you come across and your colleagues come across?
Well, first of all, Stella, I'm really delighted that you're focusing on health and safety. You know, safety's got a lot of profile, health not so much so, but it needs it, you know. I think there's a huge amount of awareness out there, you know, thanks to your good selves and the media, but we need to convert that into action. You know, now, farm safety is a very complex business. Like, you know, there's lots of activities going on farms, but the crucial areas for control are the farmer, you know, because behaviour is a huge involvement in nearly all accidents, not to mention farm accidents. But the other area is the farmer is the manager of the farm, and the facilities of the farm are crucial to prevent rushing, and you know, they give a backup protection. So the farmer is crucial in both respects, behaviour and managing the farm, so that risk is minimised.
And Pat Griffin, can I ask you about the HSA and its involvement with the agricultural sector? It's a fact that the agricultural sector is one of the most dangerous sectors to work in, and there have been accidents and fatalities. Each year we're trying to reduce that number. But I suppose, can you outline why it's one of the most dangerous sectors? Presumably, obviously, machinery is a big part of it, and it's outdoor labour, but what are the other factors?
Well, I think it's far too easy to say that farm accidents, the cause of farm accidents are tractors and machinery and livestock. That's not the core cause. It always goes back to the behaviour of the person, the individual farmer, and the decisions he makes, or he or she makes. I mean, when you approach the tractor, you approach an animal, you approach a job at height, it's decisions that individual makes at that moment will determine whether they're going to get killed doing the job, whether they're going to have a serious injury, or they're going to do the job properly and be healthy and well. So it's all about the individual. So the only way to change what's happening in the dreadful statistics that we have year on year is to focus on the individual. Make sure that that person has access to good, clear information that's easily accessible, that they understand where the real risks are and how they can protect themselves, and they make the right decisions every moment of the day on the farm. And that's what we're trying to enable by providing them with a risk assessment document that's very, very engaging, with guidance documents today launched, with a chainsaw guidance document, also bringing on board training for quad bike use, regulations to wear helmets. We're not trying to make the farmer's life or anyone working on the farm more difficult or more challenging for them. We're trying to make it easier to do but safer, and we're trying to push them towards making the right decisions. And you know, deciding on a daily basis what you're going to do on the farm, you have to make sure that you're well enough, both physically, mentally, and you know, you're properly rested to actually doing the job. You know, people going out to do a job where they're thinking about other stuff, their mind is muddled because of all sorts of pressures they're under. If they haven't been sleeping well, they're fatigued. They're going to make more mistakes. You know, lots of people in work today, if they go in to do their job and they make a mistake, they're not going to lose their arm or lose their leg or potentially lose their lives. But unfortunately, there are so many jobs on a farm that if you do make a mistake because of lack of concentration, or your head is somewhere else, you're fatigued or not properly nourished or hydrated, the consequences can be dreadful. So we're working at making safety simple and accessible, and to help farmers to try to protect themselves.
I suppose, Kieran Roche, in terms of an actual farm site or a farm business, and if you go into a construction site, there's signs for health and safety. There's usually a health and safety auditor. Every lad going in has to have his safe pass, his helmet. Farmers primarily work on their own. Sometimes they have labourers who work with them, and they're responsible, and there's a risk attached to anyone getting injured on the farm as well. What advice do you have? You work with FBD, you talk to farmers every day, you help them with risk assessments. Do you think that it's left up to the farmer a lot of the time to determine the risk because they don't have that agency or that auditor on site, as they say?
Yeah, well, I think number one important thing about farm safety, most farmers understand the risks. So a farmer understands if the handbrake isn't working on the tractor, there's a risk if he hops off, it'll roll back on top of him. The farmer understands if the PTO shaft isn't covered, there's a risk of getting entangled in that PTO shaft. The farmer understands if I'm with a cow that's calving and I don't use a calving gate, there's a high risk that animal will attack me. So number one, farmers do understand the risks. So the big piece here is about changing culture and behaviour, which is really, really hard. Now, we are working in partnership with all the stakeholders, and the Farm Safety Partnership does that. Partners with the HSA, with Teagasc, all the other farming organisations, and to get that message out there on a continual basis. And maybe to give you an idea of how hard it is to change, behaviour. A lot of us, when it comes to New Year's, we make a New Year's resolution. We might say, I'll give up smoking, I'll give up drinking, I'll give up sweets. 6 weeks down the line, how many of those people, are back smoking, back drinking, back eating sweets, or maybe have stopped going to the gym. So it's a continuous thing that we need to do. So it's a message that we have to continue giving to farmers over and over again. Work with all members of the family. So it's not just a matter of working with the farmer himself, but work with the young people through the school network, work with the older people, work with the spouse on the farm. So it's a message that needs to be continuous. We have a huge role, as we've got 34 branches nationwide. And our reps and our managers and our sales advisors speak to farmers on a daily basis. So we have a place that we can play with, but also Teagasc, the HSA, agricultural inspectors, we all have a role to work together, the farming organisations, to bring that message continuously home to each other. Because if we don't change that behaviour and that culture within the sector, we're not really going to see any sustained change. Temporarily you might see a change if you go in and highlight there's a risk, they put a cover on the PTO shaft, will that still be there 6 months' time? And that's, I suppose, the area we need to work on together as a group.
John, can I go to you and just ask you, in terms of the farmers that are seeking advice, or what message you're trying to get out to farmers nowadays? Is it the younger cohort that are now looking at things like health and safety? Do you think the older cohort of farmers are looking at health and safety and feeling, well, look, I know how to do it, I've done it this way all my life, I never had an accident? But then again, a lot of people say we don't hear about the near misses.
Right, no, we just deal with people, clients, and we're dealing with the young and the old and whoever. And I'm glad to say we have research funded by the Department of Agriculture in both the young and the old. Now, what we're really trying to do is get people to engage, right? And, my own research, is in trying to get engagement. In particular, we do training courses from now on, and so do consultants. It's a half-day course, it's with the risk assessment. As Pat said, it's a very engaging document, but we want to bring people in a group, and we want to go through the document with them. We want to get farmers talking to each other and engaging, and we want them to go out the door with a positive image of safety. And one of the key findings of what we've done would indicate that adopters make progress. If you go out and you work at safety and you do a couple of things today and do a few more things tomorrow, then you will make progress. Now that must be related to risk. If the power shaft is uncovered or the slurry pit is uncovered, you should do something about it now, but you should also be gradually improving your farm. Now, moving on from there, we have discussion groups, which I think we're renowned for, and they're very common. They're very prominent in Ireland, and they've been shown to be useful in getting people to adopt practices and technologies. We've done research. Dr. Tracy O'Connor got a PhD with us, co-funded with the HSA, but she found that farmers want little and regular and often. Like they don't. You have to come to a discussion group. They don't want it all about farm safety, but they'll take 20 minutes on one subject area, and they'll deal with that thoroughly, and they'll discuss it among themselves, and the next day they will do more. So it's adoption. Now, just very briefly, turning to health, we've done a lot of research in that area as well. And could I be blunt? Younger farmers, younger people burn their health. They don't go to get a health checkup, they drink a beer, they maybe smoke, blah, blah, blah. And then in the mid-50s, there's a turnaround and people start to look after their health. So we'd be very anxious that people are conscious that they need to look after their health, particularly starting at a younger age. Thank you.
Absolutely. Pat, can I go to you again now within your role in the HSA? We hear a lot about statistics. HSA annual report, CSO statistics, farm fatalities. But I think sometimes the message doesn't get across to farmers of what it is like to go out and have to investigate, which the HSA does for any workplace accident, if there has been an accident or even worse, a fatality. And you have to go out and try and establish what happened. And I think you need to get that message across to people of what it's like going out to that family farm. They've had an accident, they're in grief, or someone is in hospital. What is that feeling like? What are those families experiencing?
Yeah, sadly we've investigated just in the last 10 years 197 fatalities. So the group of inspectors that I have going out to those families to investigate these dreadful fatalities, they do find it shocking, but nothing as shocking as what it is for the families themselves. We have to be very sensitive about talking about these issues even because they are personal stories for these families, and we send our sympathies to anyone that has been affected by a fatality or a serious life-changing injury on a farm. The closest we could do really is go for survivor stories, where we have developed about 16 survivor stories now, which are up on our website, of farmers that have experienced very, very serious life-changing injuries. And those stories, they tell of the impact of those life-changing injuries on their farm. Actually, the first survivor story we did was with James Murphy, a farmer whose father lost his life to a bull attack, and he tells of the devastation it has caused to their family. I've worked with Embrace Farm for 8 years as a charity, Embrace Farm. I'm glad to work with them, and they have told their stories of the impact of a death on a farm through a series of videos called What's Left Behind. There's 3 families there that have opened their hearts as to what has happened there. I won't mention the exact names, but if people want to go on to Embrace Farm and look at those What's Left Behind, it tells of the trauma that a family faces dealing with the fatality itself and the aftermath to try to keep farming, and what do you do? And that is one of the most dreadful things about farm fatalities. The family have to pass the location where their loved one died every single day of the rest of their lives, unless they sell the farm. Or they have to deal with the machinery that killed that person. It is the most dreadful, dreadful situations, and we try to deal with these situations as sensitively as possible. I hope we have done, and I hope inspectors have always been that way, but it is very, very traumatic for farm families, and we know that, and we try to treat them as best we can. We try to learn from the experience so that we can prevent it happening to any other family.
Kieran Roche, as part of that then, if an accident does happen on farm, no one wants to have to go to ye in the insurance industry. We all have to have insurance, we don't ever want to have to use it. And I know you spoke with us yesterday in relation to quad safety and new legislation that's coming out. There's so many facets of a farm that need to be insured, that need to be safe. You don't want any fire hazards, you don't want, someone's fodder for the winter going up in flames. You want to make sure that they have, if the worst does happen, that they have everything in train that they need to have in train. And I know that you had mentioned before, you know, a lot of farmers don't think they need to take care and insure things, that nothing will ever happen, this, that or the other, and there's, you know, issues with underinsurance as well, and families are left devastated in more than one way after there's a serious life-changing accident.
Yeah, I think when we look at a farm accident, the first thing, there's a human cost, and that's the biggest cost. That's what Pat is talking about. It can change someone's life, the effect on the family, their complete way of life going forward, but also there's a financial aspect to it. So it's really important, I suppose, that farmers have appropriate insurances in place. And I'd advise anyone, you know, speak to your insurance advisor, check that you're covered. And today we're talking about accident prevention. So we're talking about public liability insurance for members of the public, employer's liability if you have an employee, and personal accident insurance. That's the only cover the farmer can have for himself. So it's imperative that those covers are in place. Now, they aren't mandatory covers like you have a cover for your car insurance. You know, they're optional, but we'd encourage farmers to make sure you have those appropriate covers. Because number one, with personal accident insurance, we'll give you a certain level of cover for you to get someone in to do the work when you're off injured for a period of time. And there's also a lump sum. And then there's the larger protections in relation to employer's liability, public liability insurance. And the other risk there is if you don't have insurance, potentially your assets of your farm is at risk. So it is imperative that it is in place. But the behaviour bit is a big piece. We run a campaign with all the agricultural colleges, actually in partnership with Pat and the Teagasc and the ESB, where it's called Champions for Safety. And within the Champions for Safety, Pat speaks about I suppose the realism of an accident, and he looks at actually fatalities in those cases, those images. But we actually look at the financial piece of it and the importance of cover and where you are covered in relation to employer's liability, public liability and personal accident insurance. We give out a huge amount of farm safety signage just to give the message when you enter a farm it's a dangerous place. It's highlighting the risk of livestock, the farm machinery. The farm isn't the playground. And the people that don't have permission to go onto a farm shouldn't really go there because they may not understand the risks and unwittingly put themselves at risk. So I do think it's a really important piece that people are protected financially as well, given peace of mind, but that doesn't substitute safety. We're here all about safety. No one wants to hear about a fatality, a loss of an arm, a life-changing injury, whether it's ill health that changes a farmer's outcome or someone on that farm.
John, you mentioned health and safety there. Health can play a big role in safety. If someone is, struggling with their mental health at any given time, for example, their physical health can suffer because, as Pat mentioned, you could be tired, you could be worn down, you could be apathetic, and you just don't tune in to a risk that at another time in your life you might spot like that, and that contributes to accidents then as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think we adopted the total health model, meaning that we promote health, we promote safety, and we promote the synergy between them. Now, I think, could I just say that health and mental health are part of the one spectrum. But yeah, mental health, there's many causes of it, but you can break them down broadly into two. One is farm related, and management related, livestock not going well, rushing, thinking, worrying, let's say, about a financial matter. Now, we'd say that, to farmers, to, first of all, to become aware, know your mood and, try to be, get into a good mood every day, be in a positive frame of mind. The world is full of problems, and there's the likes of Teagasc and consultants there to help you solve the farming problems, right? Now, on the other side, there is the health related, and they can be manifold, they could be, bereavement, or they could be a family issue or whatever. But what we're saying there is that, farmers should get a regular health check for many reasons, but they should be in connection, in contact with their GP, and GPs have gone busy now, so they want, it's challenging to become a client, as it were, but the first port of call, if there is a mental health or a health problem, has to be the GP. And our knowledge would say that if people haven't the habit of connecting in with their health professionals. You know, when they're struggling, then they're certainly not going to do it or do it in time. Now, one last crucial point, and we have a research paper on it and that, but in Ireland, you know, we relate very well to each other. Peers can support each other and they can solve an awful lot of problems. So it's back into that social learning and social support area. That's crucial for health as well as safety. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, we'll have to leave it there just for this segment of our health and safety focus this morning on the Agriland live stream. Thank you to John McNamara from Teagasc, Kieran Roche from FBD and Pat Griffin from the Health and Safety Authority for joining us on the panel today.